Hello, all you lovely people. And we got great news for you today. That wily Gary Gensler, he was smiling for a bit because he thought he had something yesterday. Yes, he won that NFT case saying that some NFTs are indeed securities. He thought he had us by the nuts. But indeed, we had him by the nuts because just over an hour ago, it was declared that the SEC and Gary Gensler was pwned in this Grayscale lawsuit. And this says great things about the Grayscale ETF. The thing is, it doesn't guarantee an ETF, but I think it puts us much, much closer to an ETF. Yes, it does. We have them by the nuts and we're squeezing them for all they're worth. It's not very much because his nuts aren't very big, but still, very, very good news for us. So what happened? Remember, the Grayscale suit is not in circuit court. The Grayscale suit is actually in an appellate court, which means that if Gary Gensler appeals, he has to appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States. And the Supreme Court, I don't think favors Gary Gensler and his political party right now because it is Republican controlled 6-3. So if he appeals to the Supreme Court, A, they might not hear it at all, and B, if they do hear it, he is not likely to win. So this is like one step above the Ripple case. And as you will see, Bitcoin just went up 1,000 points just on that, 1,300 points, and continues to go up 4.58%. And the alts, even though maybe not as up as we want them to be, they are slowly following along, people. And I do think they'll catch on very, very soon. I mean, it is the Bitcoin ETF. It's not the altcoins ETF that got accepted. But we all know that altcoins follow along with Bitcoin, and they're mostly up today. Some of the stable coins obviously aren't up, but they're stable coins, so they're not really going to go up. But either way, the judge's order does not guarantee eventual listing of the Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF. However, it makes it a lot more likely, and the SEC probably does not want Grayscale to be the only ETF out there, so they're much, much more likely to accept BlackRock and Fidelity and all the other ETFs. So we could have several ETFs come onto the scene in 2023. I think the bull run might actually come sooner than we thought. Sorry, Bitcoin bears. We are not going to 10K. We are not going to 12K. We might be just going back up to 30K very, very soon now because this ruling is a big one. And like I said, it's not circuit court. And I don't think you can interlocutory appeal to the Supreme Court, to my knowledge. Maybe you can. Maybe some of you lawyers will correct me on that. But I doubt it would work for the SEC anyways. So remember, Grayscale sued Bitcoin a while ago because they rejected Grayscale's ETF from being converted from their Grayscale shares. That was a bad decision by the SEC because Grayscale decided to sue the SEC, and the judges, remember that case, were not very happy with the SEC's logic. They're like, well, Mr. Gensler, it seems like these things are similar, if not the same, 99.9% of the time. So why do you approve one but not the other? And then Gary Gensler was like, even though they're similar 99.9% of the time, or like 100% of the time, they're not the same thing. And the judges were like, well, why the hell not? And the SEC was like, we don't know. We don't want them to be the same thing. Well, the judge did not buy the SEC's logic. So basically, they scored a major victory with the U.S. SEC in its efforts to convert its over-the-counter GBTC application into a listed ETF. And I think the SEC is going to have to accept. So the U.S. Court of Appeals Circuit Judge Naomi Rayo ordered Grayscale's petition for review be granted and the SEC's order to deny the GBTC listing to be vacated. So basically they're like, well, you cannot deny them anymore and you have to actually review. So the SEC does not like that. I think if they keep on refusing, they'll get sued again, and then it will actually go into action. Previously, Judge said that the SEC did not offer any explanation as to why Grayscale was in the wrong. And Of course, they still did not offer any explanation for why Grayscale is in the wrong, because the SEC is like, we don't want to explain to you why we won't accept your ETF. We just don't want you to have an ETF. So basically, they might just be pulling for the big banks and trying to wait for the time when the banks are finally ready with their giant bags to allow this through. But the judge is not going to allow that. So score one for the legal system right there. So Michael Sonneson, CEO of Grayscale Investments, said on Twitter that its legal team is actively reviewing the court opinion. The SEC is going to have to provide a good explanation of why they don't allow Grayscale to have their ETF. And the SEC doesn't really have a way to actually explain that away. So the SEC is up a creek without a paddle. And this is the second, not the first, the second major case, Ripple being the first, that the SEC has lost. So if you think they're invincible, they are indeed not invincible, people. They are very, very vincible, which means they are vulnerable to defeat. So if the SEC is suing you and you have money to defend, you should defend, because the judges and everyone else, they are not looking very kindly towards many of the SEC's arguments. So basically, this is the tweet that people should be actually looking at, explaining Grayscale's journey, and I think people should actually look at this. So the DC Circuit ruled in favor of Grayscale in our lawsuit challenging the SEC's decision to deny a GBTC conversion to an ETF. Thank you to everyone who has been on this journey with us, especially our investors. We are grateful for your support and encouragement. I told you guys should have bought Grayscale ETF when you could have, because that's probably going to go way up. I do believe I put it as one of my top investments. Like I said, there were definitely certain things that were better, that were exactly like BTC but weren't BTC, and Grayscale was at the top of my list. Well, now you should have invested back then when they had a 60% discount or 50% discount, because that discount is going away very, very soon. And people are congratulating Grayscale, as they should. Congrats, I've been following your case on my Spaces show abbreviation. I'm so happy the judge saw through the SEC and their harassment of Grayscale. All the best. Congrats, Sonny. Excited to see you run Grayscale as a bona fide ETF issuer. Now, this opens up the possibility for spot ETFs for all these altcoins. Of course, everyone is going to have to wait until the Ripple appeal is actually over to make sure that the cryptos themselves are not securities, but this opens the way up for a slew of new financial products using crypto. So this is a victory not only for Grayscale and the Bitcoin spot ETF, but Bitcoin spot ETFs everywhere. Not only Bitcoin spot ETFs everywhere, but spot ETFs everywhere for all the coins. So all those TAs that saying we're saying we're going straight down. Nope, you are wrong. We went up 1,300 points. And I do have a feeling we're probably going to go up some more in terms of Bitcoin, because I do believe an ETF is very, very likely to actually hit this year. A lot of people are predicting 23K bottom. I do not see a 23K bottom right now. So obviously, like, Grayscale is the largest OTC traded Bitcoin fund with over $14 billion under management. And like I said, they were trading at nearly 50% discount earlier this year into last year. And of course, that was because it had trouble with DCG. Like I said, I never really thought the GBTC Trust was going to liquidate. So that's why I actually thought it was a much better investment than Bitcoin itself, because you're getting the appreciation of Bitcoin and the discount. Also, I do think there's going to be a premium sooner or later. So like DCG, there was fear that they were going to liquidate the Grayscale fund because it owed so much money, but most likely they were just going to divest it because Grayscale was a huge cash cow for DCG. And now we're seeing the fruits and results of that lawsuit against the SEC. I'm so glad it wasn't dropped because DCG had problems, because this opens up the way. And I think those analysts are going to have to change their opinion soon that it was less likely that this year was going to get a Bitcoin ETF, because the SEC really And BlackRock, probably their boss, really doesn't want Grayscale to be the only ETF out there. And they have zero reason to actually deny Grayscale now of their ETF. This is just awesome, earth-shattering news for crypto, maybe even bigger than the Ripple case, although I would put them in the same level of awesomeness right now. All we need to do right now is for Coinbase to win their case to make sure that secondary sales are not securities of any coin, for Ripple to win their appeal, or for the appeal to actually get denied. And then the SEC will have 4 losses in a row, and then Gary Gensler might actually be sacked because he is doing a very bad job as SEC commissioner. He is losing every one of these cases. The government is not winning. They are not invincible, and the courts are ruling heavily against the SEC right now because they are not putting up with their BS. Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler, and Brad Sherman must be very sad that crypto is actually winning against their tyranny, and we are on our way to victory and a much higher price. Bitcoin is pumping, and I do believe it will continue pumping. So that is the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.